Leah, I am so delighted to speak to you today from sunny Nashville.
Thank you.
I came across your work through your podcast, Misperceived, and I have to say, I absolutely loved it. So, all kinds of stuff around just your warmth, your wit, your wisdom, and the data that you dig into around so many subjects. So yeah, you're obviously a professor of sociology at the University of Melbourne, and you are the director of the Future of Work Lab. So I don't know if you can tell us a little bit about the work you're doing currently. I know you have a book coming up as well this spring, all about the mental load. And I just want to kind of dig into kind of your areas of research and link it really with some stuff I'm doing at the moment as well on the future of work, what it looks like for us all, how we make it better in this age of AI. So could you tell me a little bit about your work, what it's looking like, and yeah, what we need to do in terms of the mental load and your perspective on all of that?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the most wonderful introduction. That is so amazing. I need you to follow me around and hype me up everywhere, so I appreciate this. Um,
Fangirl.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I am a sociologist. I've been studying gender, work, and family for the past 20 years, and I've published over 70 articles on this. I work in fact, not fiction. So my research is all about how do we bring empirics to understand the lived experiences of all of us, right? I'm a working mother as well. So if you hear banging in the background or a leaf blower, this is because I also have the same, probably am managing and balancing the same responsibilities that you are having, and which gives me a different and deeper type of insight. The work I've been working on right now is how do we understand the mental load? How do we actually capture the mental load? Now, if I'm saying this to you, you're probably thinking, wow, this is a hot topic. I've heard a lot about it. It seems to be the buzzword of the moment. And what I'm trying to do in my book, Drained, How to Reduce Your Mental Load to Do Less and Be More, is help you understand what the mental load is from an evidence base. So one of the things that we get wrong about the mental load is we don't have a really clear definition of it. And so if I said to you, like, what is the mental load? You'd probably go, oh, I don't know. It's like kind of our thinking work and it's invisible. And we don't have a really clear definition. So this book will give you that exact clear definition from the research. Your mental load is your emotional thinking work that you need, that helps keep your life, family, and work running. It is when thinking work becomes emotional. So let me give you an example. If I said to you, hey, you have a podcast tomorrow with Giselle and you're going to talk. If it's just thinking work, I just put it on my list. It goes into my calendar. I remember to do it. But say for preparing for today, let's say someone like me had a moment of like, okay, you have that at 9 a.m., but you got to make sure you're up. Do you have your makeup done or not? Did you make sure that everyone's out of the house or not? Are you sure that your work is going to be organized? What if you say something wrong on this podcast and people don't like you? Oh my God, but then what would that look like? Would you kill your career? So sometimes for us, that's emotional thinking work we do for our lives. And I'm giving you one example from my morning, but you could have an example that you carry every single day. And so this is what I'm trying to do, give you an understanding of what is the mental load as emotional thinking work that you do every day to keep your work, life, and family running, and then introduce you to the 8 types. There's not just one that you're carrying. So when I gave you that example, I gave it to you intrinsically because I was saying to you, like, when I started to do all that emotional thinking work, it's hitting across the 8 different types of mental load. So how do we help people get the language to start actually starting to have the conversation in open and honest ways?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I thought was great was you had this clip go viral. So if we kind of dig into a little bit of that particular type of mental load, you had a clip go, this clip on Instagram, and it was a guy, Alex Trippier, who has this Be a Happier Parent podcast, and he was quoting your research. And you have published scores of papers over the years on gender, work, and family. And he had taken one of your papers and he was talking about his own experience, saying that the mental load of housekeeping and how people were judging his wife differently than they were judging him on the housekeeping, and he had never got his head around this, but your paper had kind of explained to him, and then he explained it to the world on Instagram, why this was a deal. So would you just talk us through that particular paper? Because I think it's such an interesting example of one of the types of mental load.
Okay, girl, this was one of the best moments ever. It was crazy. And it was so funny because I got pushed I'm just going to do a little side story and then I'll tell you about the research, but I got pushed his post and it wasn't mine. It was from one of my friends, Allison Damager, who has this great book on the mental load as well, right? And I was like, oh, you're Instagram famous. It's so exciting. And then the next day I got pushed this other post and I was like, this guy's talking about this messy room study. Wait, that's my research. It was like the best moment. Like, wait a minute. And he had like all these photos. He took a picture of the room. And then I said to my friend Sarah, like, your room is, our research is going viral. Okay. So this comes in my book too. When I tell people about this, I think they feel intrinsically connected to it. And so it will come in Drained. And it was so important to the people who read it that it'll come in the first chapter of Drained. Because people were like, everyone who's reading is like, this story, this research, bump it up. One of the things that I try to do as a sociologist and as an academic is to help bring evidence to gender myths. And this is kind of the purpose of my podcast, right? Like, how do we see if some of the things that we share and swap with each other are actually true? Like, are they actually evidence-based, or are they just outdated narratives that we need to get rid of? So one of our questions was, are men dirt blind? If you hear people talk about why women are neater or women are cleaner, part of the answer is like, oh, men just can't see the mess, right? They can't find the keys. They can't see it. And we wanted to actually test this, right? We wanted to see what would happen if we could bring empirical research to test this idea. And we thought it was not going to be true, right? Like, we expected that. And I'll tell you what we found was it's not true from our paper. But the second thing we were interested in is like, okay, if it's not that men can't see the mess, if men and women can equally see the mess, then why are women so stressed about the mess? Like, why then does it create such a fear, right? Or anxiety or emotion?
And why are men like, yeah, this is not something to worry about. I don't
Who cares?
understand why you're worried about that. Who cares about the mess? Like, what odds? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a little bit of like, you're being a little bit high strung by caring.
Neurotic.
Correct.
Why are you bothered about this? Yes.
Correct. So why are men so judgmental? Okay. And so what we did is we took the exact same room. Now I want you to think it's the exact same room, and we cleaned it and we had it messy, right? So same room, clean and messy. No one sees the picture twice. We randomly assign people to one photo, and then we switch the gender of the person. Now, I was on another podcast and they were like, okay, but I don't understand. Like, how do you not mess this up so people don't know what you're doing? Well, to do that, what we say to them is something like, hey, Jane is thinking about renting out her apartment on Airbnb. This is what it looks like. What do you think do you view it as clean, messy, right? We're not saying like, do you judge women more for mess? We give them we give them a different scenario so they don't get primed. And what we found was two things. The first is that men and women rate a messy room as equally messy. They can see the mess. Okay. Same.
Okay.
The second thing that I think went more viral on this was that when we asked people, like, what would happen if someone dropped in unexpectedly? What would happen if this was the state of your home, of Jane's home or John's home, and someone showed up, a parent, a friend, a coworker, a relative, just unexpectedly at the door? How would that person judge Jane or John for the state of the room? And the answer was they would see them as less capable, competent, less likable, less good, right? Like not just messy, but see them as less competent human beings. And so when we think about why are women internalizing this norm, it's because we expect that. We expect that someone's going to judge her, but not him. And even if the room is relatively clean, they're going to judge her regardless. And so when you feel that intrinsically, like I feel like the mess is tied to me, or I feel like if I have a messy home, it's a moral judgment on me and people are going to think of me as less. We have the research that confirms that. You're right. And when men, and it's not the same for men. And so they can't see this. This is one of the key themes in my book, is like men can't see the social worlds that women are living in because they don't live in them.
And it's not their same experience. But
Correct.
They might be judged if the grass on the lawn was knee high and people were coming round. Hence, that old thing where you're like, right, people are coming round and you're like this with the cleaning and the whatever, and is there a fresh towel in the downstairs loo, and da 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 da. And then your husband's out there either chopping down a tree or mowing the lawn or something and going, well, those are your jobs in. And it's just gender norms and expectations, isn't it? I can remember, I relate to this story. I think that's why that clip went so viral. Did you say like 6 million times,
Six
thousands and
billion.
thousands of likes and shares and whatever? Because people were like, I feel this so viscerally. We've got in our house, we've moved house recently, and can you see these doors behind me? So I've got
Yes.
some doors like that that come from my front door, but into my kitchen. And you can see from the front door, because the doors are glass and open, my kitchen sink. And that gives me palpitations. Can you understand that, Leah? Like, do you get that vibe? Can you immediately go, I can understand why the kitchen sink being visible from the front door makes you want to curl up into a ball? Because permanently, you're like, if somebody knocks on, like, and you're right, it's you feeling like the judgment thing. I was having another chat with a friend this morning who was relating this kind of concept to the kind of socially gendered work we do around caregiving and present giving and things. So again, in terms of present buying for in-laws or things like that, if they will forgive your husband for not rocking up with a present, and he's like, but we don't exchange presents, it's not a big deal, da da da. But who are you to forget, the present or the thoughtful thing or whatever? So there's labor in that, which brings me on to, so you have beautifully defined these 8 areas of mental load. And I know you talk about these in the book, and I'm really interested to maybe go through what these are, if you can name a few for us. But like, you're giving us some of the solutions. Like, Leah, we all
Yeah.
relate to the problem. We are in knee deep. We're like, I am with you. So could you maybe talk us through a few of the different types of mental load that you've identified in your research? And like, how do we fix it, please?
No problem. Girl, I got you. Don't worry. I've spent 2 years figuring this out. Like, it's okay. I'm here. Um, the book's coming out in April too. So April 21st. So it'll be
We're
here for you
in.
we're in,
We are
buy it.
in.
Um, okay. So it's funny as you're talking and you're describing the gift giving thing. I instantly went to like, oh, okay, that captures 3 different types of mental load,
Okay.
right? As you describe it. So when your friend says, I am there and I am responsible for the gift giving, but he isn't. She's doing a couple of things. The first thing she's doing is magic making. Like, she is trying to make sure that, so magic making is the mental load of ensuring that carrying on traditions and creating special life moments. So a birthday comes up and it's a special life moment, and how do we make it magical? This is why the birthdays are particularly stressful, right? Because, and in particular, if it's for someone that is an in-law or someone, where you want to make sure you get the right gift. You want to do this right. So that's the magic making of how do I make it special by getting the right gift. It also crosses over to this relationship hygiene mental load. And so that's number 2. And this is maintaining strong social connections. And so the gift is a way to maintain that connection to someone, maintain the connection, make sure they feel special, right? Like, magical gift that will help bridge our relationship. In addition to that, it's going to tap into life organization. This is like, I think, how we would basically think of the mental load to date. It's like staying on top of the tasks. But let's say you go in your brain like, okay, it is my mother-in-law's birthday coming up. Let's make sure we get her something special, magic making. Let's make sure we bring it to her at her house or wherever, her place of work, or fill in the blank so that she feels like this is a good experience. That's relationship hygiene. And then what is it going to be? Where am I going to go? Then let me get into what you think. Like, where am I going to go? Who's going to buy it? What's the gift? Do I buy it online? Do I wrap it? Do we get it on sale? Will she know? Will she like it? That's the life organization stuff that goes tick, 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 tick. And when you're describing that, actually, again, much like the mess, like, the social penalty comes to women. That's because you're sitting within these traditional gender norms, right? Women are socialized from birth to be kind, caring, considerate, giving, put themselves second, aware, and making sure everyone feels included, right? And so when she's saying, how come I'm responsible for this? And if it doesn't go right, I'll be the one to blame, but he won't, right? We expect men to be kind of careless in this way. We expect men to be distracted. We think men's energy should go somewhere else. That's not a good use of your energy. You should invest it in making more money in your career. Those are social norms. Let me be clear on what I'm saying. I'm not saying this, but I'm saying you're living in that water. You're swimming and breathing in this.
This is what we're swimming in. This is the soup we live in. Yeah, this is what we're wading through.
Exactly. And so, and until we can see that we're swimming in it, right? That's what my purpose in this book is like. How can I help you start to think about when you're doing this work? And then how can I help you to start to think about when it's made heavier by outdated social norms that just don't make sense, right? Like that either empirically untrue, like women are not better at multitasking. That's a lie.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
So how do we see that? And then how do we get really clear? So I have this thing called the mental load audit in terms of strategy. How do we get crystal clear on where your mental load energy is going? How do we start treating it like a precious resource? How do we think about the fact that you do not have an infinite amount of mental load energy? How do you start to identify when you're in burnout, when your mental load is burning you out? I have a kind of a quiz on that, like a couple questions, right, to ask you that. And how do you start thinking about really, really strategically, like that your mental load energy is precious and should be invested in your biggest, wildest dreams. Like it should be. And sometimes you're doing stuff that's valuable, of course. And sometimes you're doing stuff that you just got told you're supposed to do and you should absolutely drop it. Sometimes you're duplicating stuff with your partner. Like, I'm sorry, if you want me to just go in and say men are bad and women are right, it's not going to be the book. But what I am saying to you is we're all sitting in this soup and we need to get clear. Like sometimes he doesn't know, but sometimes, you know, your standards are too high in part because you got socialized into feeling like if everything goes wrong. And so how do we take some of the pressure off us? How do we start having honest conversations? How do I stop holding you to account to a gender norm that I don't actually believe? How do we stop doing that, right? Like we need to knock it off.
Do you feel it starts with the conversation? So it's really interesting. Like I know you've talked before about the idea that this is it's not an ambition gap that women have, it's a burnout gap. And I know when I've done webinars and presentations before, some of the questions I get asked are, well, can you explain to me how to start having this conversation with my partner? Because, you know, we have these conversations within ourselves and we're like, yeah, I see you. I feel you. I get this. I don't know how to make this transition in my own home. So I know, like, from a practical perspective, Eve Rodsky has done all this work, hasn't she? So she's got the card game, and what you do is you kind of have, here are my tasks. You have these tasks, we have these tasks, you take these cards. So if the pet needs looking after, right, you're taking the card for the pet and the vet and the feeding and the walking and the whatever, or you're taking the card for the dry cleaning or whatever. And you initiate these conversations in your homes. I've had loads of women say to me, yeah, the practical stuff is one thing to have the conversation about, and I can maybe go there and we can divvy that up. I do not know how to start with these conversations about the mental load because, as you've just alluded to, like, it's very hard to see because we are swimming in different realities, aren't we? And we are socialized in different ways. And, you know, the response tends to be, you know, the men will go off and chat and go, yeah, my wife gets really uptight about the laundry and the whatever and they, you know, and they're just being too uptight and they have too high standards in the home or whatever. We need to let this go. How do we have these compromise conversations where we can both kind of come to an understanding? Because you're right, it's not about right or wrong and, you know, you're bad and I'm good. And it's about actually, how can we make everybody's life better? Because everybody just wants a bit of flipping harmony in their relationships, don't they? So what advice would you give people in terms of what do they do to start those conversations about the mental load, not just the practical stuff?
I love this question. I talk a lot about this. I know you do too, and I do too. And this is where I have a lot of conversations. And it's interesting because I'm going to say something a bit controversial. For some of you, it's not going to be about recalibrating with your partner. Like I think sometimes we set We set things, having done this now for years and years and years, what I'm going to say to you is there's not a single solution to this problem. And
Yeah.
because the mental load is so complex, that you're going to need to be prepared to have multiple solutions that shift and change over time. And you need to get clear on the mental load. I feel like I'm really like scolding. You need to get clear on the mental load. Part of it is you don't even have the language yet. Like, let's forgive you. Let's forgive your partner, your spouse, or whatever, because you all couldn't even have these conversations because you didn't have the language,
Couldn't
right?
define it.
Couldn't
Couldn't
define it.
define it.
So when I was doing this research, because all of it's evidence-based, right? So I would say to people like, okay, you're actually carrying 8 different type of mental loads, and here's what they are. The moment of like, wait, what? Like, sorry, like, wait, what? And then tell me, and I'd read through them, and they would go, oh, that's exactly it. It's this aha.
And that is why my head has exploded.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like the penny drops, and you go, oh yeah, I just thought I was crazy. Yeah.
And then I'll say, okay, and you're doing 7 different stages. The process of doing the mental load is 7, and your partner might be taking some. And I talk to the men too, right? Like everyone is included in these interviews, and the men would say like, oh, I didn't know, right? Like I'd say, well, okay, well, what piece of the magic making are you doing? Like describe. Oh, I think I'm splitting it 50-50. Okay, well, which components of it? Like, well, tell me, be specific. And I had one person whom it will stick in my brain forever. And I love this. And he said, I have to be honest with you. Like, I don't think I'm doing any of this, but I didn't know that until now. So I think the potential for transformation through language is high on this. And I think that for some of you who are like, oh my God, she's going to ask me one more time to go in and have the same fight that I've had 85 times. I'm not asking you to do that. If that's the solution that you identify by the end of my audit that is right for you, then that's what you should do. I'm trying to give you a range of tools in your toolkit. So I know we'll talk about this eventually, but I'm trying to say to you, like, what about AI solutions? Will any of those help? What about actually just carving out more time for yourself? What about exercise? What about walks? I heard women say like, go through my audit and say, what I want to do is go to a spin class. And there's one right down the street. And I can't believe it's taken me this long to figure out that this is something like I'm just saying that. And then part of that is because women and mothers in particular are so on the go. They're waking up and it's like the day is full. They're just go, 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 go. They're not having the time to sit, pause, reflect, think.
You don't reflect, do you? You don't actually take that
and have the space for it.
You're on the hamster wheel and you don't have the space for it. Yeah. So that's actually something I'm doing at the moment this year is I'm going to start retreats for 3 nights because I feel like that is what we need is the space to do this. And you're developing, so people can go to your website and get this mental load audit, can they?
Okay, so thank you very much. First, I saw your retreats and I was like, ooh, beautiful. Like, I was like, I want to be a part of this. I actually was going to like sign up, ask for information. I was like, this looks incredible. And not very expensive. Sorry, she did not pay me to say this. I really did look because I had the same idea at one point. Yeah, I was like, I really do agree with you. I think this is one of the solutions because women have a hard time making space for themselves without feeling guilt.
It's the thinking space. Yeah, and that's what it's called, the thinking space retreat, because we do really struggle, don't we, to actually get that time to go, what is it I want? So this is part of your audit, isn't it?
Exactly.
You need to audit yourself and your life and come up with, okay, what is it I want and need? Because until you know that, so you have to identify what the problem is, read your book, then figure out what it is that you want and need to then be able to have the articulation to go, okay, can we come to some solution, compromise, whatever, agreement over this? Yes?
Absolutely. And sometimes you don't need your partner to do that. Sometimes that's just self-work, right? Which I think might feel a little relieving to some women. Correct. Self-work. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I do think that the rest and recover time, the quiet retreat, the introspection time is so important for women. And through my research, don't feel guilty about it. So many women felt guilt. You can't have it both ways. You can't be like, if there's stuff you can't drop, then you can't then in your recovery, your retreat, your downtime, feel like you're a bad person for doing that and still be going through your mental load. I'm saying to you, no more. That time then, you deserved it, you earn it, you need it, and it can't be time where you're sitting on the couch watching whatever, having the greatest time of your life, but feeling like a bad person while you're doing that and still going through your to-do list.
Yeah.
Knock that off. You deserve that space and time. Okay. For those of you who are interested, I have lightenlab.com. We have a self-assessment. So one of the things I want people to be able to do, my purpose or my goal or my dream, is that you are able to start thinking about your mental load as precious energy and thinking about the ways in which it's changing over time. When you start off in the morning, your mental load will be different than when you end, than at lunch. Your mental load is going to fluctuate across the day. It's going to fluctuate across the week, across the seasons, across your life. And what I want is you to have both the language, but a clear and free assessment tool so you can start coming in. You can come into Light and Lab anytime you want, every day, multiple times a day. You can take the assessment multiple times and it'll give you a result at the end. Here's what's high, here's what's low, here's what's driving your mental load. Because you are carrying a mental load to work, to family, and to life. All three of them. You're carrying all three. And so that's one thing. If you're just like, want to get your feet wet, you stick your little toes in and see what's going on, come check it out on that website. Of course, I have this book that it's going to go everywhere. It's very exciting. It must be hitting a nerve, but where the audit is in the book. So I'll give you a little description of what the audit is, but the audit is in the book and you can buy the book, and hopefully we'll have eventually a little learning module where you can go online and then have an online module for the audit. That's my dream and goal, but I'm doing my best I can with my limited mental load, but this is where I'm heading.
With all the plates that we're all juggling. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that sounds just amazing. So yeah, and I'll put that in the show notes as well, where people can get your details and everything for the book. Okay, so the next thing I would like to talk about is just expanding a little bit. So I know we also have very similar interests in terms of your work in the Future Work Lab and my interest in the future of work in the age of AI. And we were saying we have similar age children. So this is something that we're passionate about for society, for our kids, for the future of work, women leadership, what this all needs to look like. We know that the Future of Jobs Report 2025 was talking about this idea that skills are going to change. So about 40% of our skills are going to change in the next 5 years in terms of what jobs look like. Jobs are going to be displaced. And so when people are now going to be kicking out to work, this is going to look very, very different to the environment that you and I grew up in. So I have been having various conversations with MPs recently. I had a trip to the Houses of Parliament last week. We were talking about the idea of fusion work. So there was a white paper launch and this idea of we need to be really careful in terms of this adoption of AI, that when we fuse human and AI capability, we're super clear about what that looks like, and that we're not just simply displacing humans, and that we're not going to kind of risk economic collapse. So one of these kind of examples was the idea, if you just take something like, say, Amazon, if we end up with all driverless cars and all robot pick packers, then you're going to be displacing a load of jobs from Amazon. Who's going to buy Amazon products? Now, not that I'm kind of, rah Amazon.
Advocating for
I'm just saying as an example of a global company and how jobs are going to change. We need to be cognizant of how these changes might look and what impact they might have on the economy. And my particular interest is in the area of women and work. So what was really fascinating about some of these conversations I've been having is consistently people are saying AI is a force multiplier. So if a system is broken, AI is just going to expand that brokenness, and quickly and at speed. And, as far as I'm concerned, women's work is one of the most broken systems in the economy in terms of the overload, the care work, the intensity of the work we're doing, our inability to actually match work and life and all these things. And it doesn't just impact women, it impacts families, it impacts men. So how is it in a digital age, we're going to make work more human? Because we're talking about this idea that AI is going to replace tasks. But actually, the evidence is saying, those tasks just then intensify. So we say things like, well, it's fine, we can work flexibly, we can work from home. But as we know, and a lot of your research has talked about, working flexibly and from home often intensifies the domestic load gap. So these things are good, but unless they're implemented in a really policy specific way, we are really at risk of amplifying these problems, aren't we? So I would love your take on, yeah, some of this stuff and what we need to do in terms of the future that we're looking at and protecting work and work that is humane.
Okay, you've now hit on my second most passionate topic. It's like when this is great. When I saw your work, I was like, "Oh, this is great." We've been working for the past 5 years through the Future Work Lab on what exactly are the future of work trends, and what does that mean specifically for women. So aligned, right? Our thinking is aligned. A couple of things I want listeners to be thinking about, because one of my goals in this work is how do we ensure that women are prepared and not scared? These changes are coming, like you're in them, like they're not coming, they are here. You're in the
It's now.
fourth industrial revolution, right? Like you're in it. And so if we think about this in some distant future, it's wrong, and you're in it currently. A couple things I want you to think about. There is going to be a confluence of change that is going to accelerate and happen quickly. So technological change is only one piece. Demographic change in aging populations, many women are already feeling this, right? The sandwiching of care between those who are aging and the little, that's going to happen at the same period of time. It is happening now.
Yeah.
Thinking about environmental change, thinking about economic and instability, right? I think many of us are like, what is going on in the world? Evidently, the US now owns Venezuela. They're going to buy Greenland, right? Like, you wake up in the morning and there's so much change that is happening so rapidly that it can feel quite overwhelming. This is going back to my mental load stuff. This was one of the mental load categories. Is this kind of meta category of you are burning through some of your mental load energy trying to think about and figure this out. And I'm telling you, I said this on my last podcast, one of my podcast episodes. This is no generation has experienced this. Like, you have no blueprint. There is no blueprint. You can't say, what did we do in the past? One of the things you need to know is change is going to happen. So you need to be adaptable. Now, I've thought too about those questions you said, what about women? And I have a little bit of I have some of the same take, but a little bit of a different take. I'll go for my same take a little bit. One of the things I think about, I wrote an article for our NGV, National Gallery Victoria, where I talked about, like, with my colleague Brendan Churchill, what happens if it wipes out men's jobs? Like, you're describing, like, factory, like delivery jobs. If we know that men disproportionately are the Uber drivers
White
or the
collar
delivery,
jobs.
I'm talking
Blue
like
collar jobs.
all of it. I'm talking, well, first I'm talking blue collar jobs, right? First I'm saying, using your Amazon example, what happens if it is the people who are driving the trucks, and now it's a driverless car? Now everything from Amazon gets delivered by a driverless car. That's the goal, right? So those jobs disappear. What if it is the people who are working in factory? Like, what if you knock out what are disproportionately men-dominated jobs? And what if we live in a world in which we tell men that their value comes from being a breadwinner?
Yeah. Which
And then those jobs are gone.
We do live in that world. Yeah.
We live in that world. So thank you. We live in that world. So what then happens? We have a paper about, do you then reskill people? Question mark. Do you reallocate the work? Do you take, if there's less work, do you spread it amongst more people? Which goes back to your question about flexible work. Or do you actually tax the companies? It's interesting because sometimes they'll talk about a UBI, universal basic income. Zuckerberg will say we should have a UBI. Why would he be saying that? He's like a cajillion bajillionaire, unless he sees something that's about to happen, right? Which is that jobs are going to disappear. And that instability will occur. And so maybe you need a universal basic income. I'm saying
Musk
this
is
to you.
talking about that as well. Musk is also talking about the future is going to be like leisure. That's it. And it's really interesting that some of these podcasts, so the Diary of a CEO, he had another guy on and they were like, what are we all going to do? And I was thinking, it's interesting because I was thinking you'd have time for care. But care work never came up. They were like, what are we going to do? Are we all just going to climb mountains and run marathons? And I was thinking, like, there's a full-time care job within that. It does the emotional labor of life. Didn't even occur to them when they were having this conversation. So I thought that was one interesting thing in terms of, 80% of the tech industry is male. So, and nobody's really having these conversations. So they're saying, yeah, we are going to displace or replace jobs, and it's going to be, and the thing is,
a utopia.
We don't
a
know.
Utopia.
It might be, and we don't know. We don't know. It's all to play for at the moment, isn't it? So go on, continue.
Absolutely. And you wrote in this in your you wrote in your Substack too. So like the displacement. Oh, I had it in my brain, but now it's leaving my brain.
About the care
Um,
work? Was it about the
um,
care work stuff?
oh no, you okay? Sorry, you had okay. Yes, you wrote in your Substack. You have this great article about the like what is going to happen with that time, and you made this point. Sorry, don't worry, guys. I got it back. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm firing again. You made this point.
Is this another point of the emotional load? Is this brain fog? Is there like that might go on the
It's
list?
probably
Maybe so.
perimenopausal. Let's be
Yeah.
honest about it.
That's
Who
fine.
knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
Another mental load. Don't worry, y'all. I'm with you. I'll start doing podcasts on this too. You talked about like there's this assumption that there's going to be this leisure time, but what
Yeah.
happens when we actually have this expectation of intensified productivity? And I
Yes, that's
think
right.
that there is this question too when we look historically of like this has been promised to us before. Like this idea that all of a sudden that will have some sort of technological advance like the Industrial Revolution was like, okay, now if we have machines doing people's work, people are going to just have more leisure. And that wasn't what happened. It just intensified productivity. Workers, right? Workers became, you had
Just
to
more
do
outputs.
more.
You have to do more.
Ex- and so I think this idea, it's like, let's not be fooled again to think about what this will do, especially if you can already see, again, this was in your Substack, right? Like that people are already expecting returns to productivity, that they're talking about this. What I want women, and you have the point about what about care? And I'm going to say to you that the care demands are going to become so big that governments are going to have to tackle them. It's like the fact that they're
Yeah.
starting to think about it and talk about it. It's like, again, there's too much work to be done with aging populations.
To
Someone
ignore that.
to ignore it. And what do you do? Again, what do you do when you don't want to hollow out your prime labor force? Because for those of you who don't know, basically what's happening is the prime age labor force, 18 to say 60, is supporting the little kids, the babies, and the older, right? And so if you start to hollow out that labor force, which is exactly what's happening right now in the US, the most recent statistics show that, 500,000 women have left the labor market. Most of
That's
them are
right.
leaving for care demands. You have this
Yeah.
excellent point too that like a lot of these women 45 to 55 right at that peak where they're actually have the intensification of their power and their skills, their experience and their training, but then the caregiving demands get sandwiched that they're leaving employment for entrepreneurship, which I'm going to say to you, I have a lot of conversations with these women too, and I worry about this because that's hard. That's a individual response to a structure that's totally broken.
Exactly.
Governments have to step in because or let me say, this is not an individual problem because you hollow out that labor market. Who's going to do the work? Who's going to keep everything going? Who's going to, be the
Who's going to
productive
pay the
engine?
taxes? Yes.
Exactly. So this is a very complicated problem and I'll say one more thing. I mean, I can say 8 million things, obviously, but one of the things, now here's where I disagree with you. Well, here's where I think there's an opportunity. When I give my talks about future work, I talk about you need to start thinking about industry, these big changes that are coming, environmental, technological, demographic, they're all happening at the same time. You need to think about what are those going to mean for industries.
Yeah.
Different industries have different risks for AI exposure and automation. They're two different things. What do you need to think about jobs within industries? So you have industries that are at risk, you have jobs that are at risk, and then you have skills. And this is those three things within
Okay.
jobs. They
Okay.
got
Okay.
those three
Okay.
levels.
Okay.
One of the things that will happen potentially is that some of the jobs, some of the high growth areas are going to be women dominated industries. It's going to be healthcare. It's going to be education, like the care sector, because of
The
the demographic
care
change,
sector.
is going to
Yes, so
grow.
I know where you're going with this. So, because I had written about this idea, my example had been that in terms of task replacement, so some of the jobs that women are doing in terms of call centers and administrative roles, and some of these kind of task orientated roles. So, for instance, if you took call centers as an example, and some of the jobs where you go, right, okay, it's fine, the kind of easy peasy call center work, where you have to answer people's queries that would be taken away by the chatbots.
Yeah.
But actually, the labor intensive cognitive care work with the difficult demands and the angry customers and the da 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 da, so that the emotional intensity would possibly increase. And you're saying, actually, you see that from a different perspective because you're saying, yeah, okay, fine, but what the only thing that's going to be left is care work, essentially. And therefore, women's care work is going to be more important. And your, I guess, hope would be that we therefore have to flip and pay attention to it, because that is what's left, is care work. Yes?
Yeah. And thank you for going this way. Yes, I have we have this parenting work skills certificate that we've run through the University of Melbourne. And I'm actually working now with a team at the US at Rutgers, and, Lisa Kapowitz and Crystal Duarte and Kate Mangino. And we're working on this training. We're actually, I'm saying this, but the OECD is saying this, and the BLS is saying this. We're saying what they're saying is the things that are going to be hardest to replace are inherently what we call human skills. Time management, adaptability, creativity, empathy. I mean, don't be fooled though. The AI is trying to get there, right? Like it's just a matter of time. Those are the skills that are going to be in demand that you can't replace, because all that AI is doing is replicating our worlds. But what it's not doing is, it can't do that deeper care work. It can't do that deeper empathetic work. It can't do that human work yet. And it can't it can create new ideas, but it's creating new ideas based on existing ideas. So creativity and innovation is going to be increasingly valuable. And one of the things that we do in that training, that certificate, and we're talking about expanding, is a lot of that skill comes from the lived experience of caregiving. That actually caregivers are building future of work skills through their experience of caring. Anyone who has been a primary caregiver or has had that experience knows you leave changed, right? You leave that experience changed. You become more patient. You become more empathetic. You're better at time management. You become more creative. You're better able to work intergenerationally, because all of a sudden you have deeper insight into someone's lived experience through the experience of caring. We will all at some point be called upon to care. The question is, how can we start to recognize that those skills come back into the workforce, that those are the future work skills you're trying to recruit for, that those are the ones that you are hard to train into people. How do you train someone to be empathetic? Well, give them like a year of primary care for someone they love and talk about like lived experience. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, as these changes are happening, how do we make sure, because I like to speak to women, like you like to speak to women, how do you make sure that you're not counted out? My goal for you is that you are prepared and not scared. You are not counted out. I think you need to do a couple of things. One, I want you, woman, to start thinking about within your occupation what kind of skills are at high risk for AI and automation replacement. You should be on the front foot on that, because if you can see it and you can think it, it will, you will be prepared. What kind of things can you bring in? If that's going to happen, that doesn't necessarily mean that the work is going to disappear. It's going to change.
Yeah.
So how are you ready for the change? From the employer perspective, how do we start to change the narrative about caregiving as being dead time? It's not dead time. It's actually time in which you're out building core competencies that you bring back into the workforce. So let's try to shift that narrative. And how do we compensate that effectively? How do we start to see that as value? And then from an organizational perspective, from a government perspective, tricky, right? They're not going to regulate. They're regulating AI, but in superficial ways, because as you pointed out in your Substack, it's a race now between the US and China of who's going to dominate. Yeah. Absolutely. And Trump's pulled them off, off. Yeah. And so I think this is going to happen. It is going to happen, but how do you make sure that you're not leaving out the most vulnerable as it's happening? So how do you get creative in your solutions?
Yeah, I love this perspective, Leah, because it feels optimistic to me when you say, I see this as an opportunity for women, because there's an opportunity here to, all that's going to be left pretty much is emotional caregiving work, which we have never recognized properly as society. We've never paid for it. I guess the way I'd come at it is, we've never recognized it and we're unlikely to recognize it ongoing. But then as you say, if that's all that's left, surely we need to value it more. Surely we need to get to a point in society where we're saying, right, this is the work that is human. This is the work that needs doing. This is the work that needs recognizing. I think there's a leadership piece to this, in the sense of, when you have 80% of the tech industry that's male, when you have leadership within politics that is still not equitable as well. So globally, I think it's about a third, 40%. It's slightly higher in the UK. in terms of the gender split within parliaments. You don't necessarily have people making the same priorities in terms of family and these kind of priorities for society, do we? So I agree with you in terms of like there's the piece of it that we need to do structurally, and hopefully we see this as an opportunity. And then there's the individual piece. And I had also been mulling over this thought that I'd read about, which is the idea, exactly as you say, that the main danger is that we're not upskilling. So the main danger is not necessarily that, okay, AI is going to change our jobs. It's more that if we don't maybe get on board with this,
Yes.
people in other countries are going to get on board with it. So their companies are going to work differently, more productively, da da da. So unless we kind of grab this bull by the horns and go, okay, this the horse is bolted, the train has left the station.
Yes.
We just need to get on board, and we need to go, yeah, okay, I am going to have to upskill in a certain way, and the job things are going to look different. So we're talking about the skills of the future being, and this is again relevant for our children, isn't it? Critical thinking, adaptability, and lifelong learning. And this is the thing that I keep going on about. We are going to have to just accept the idea that the pace of change is now quick. And yeah, we need to be on board with that. And I love that reframe and shift around valuing the fact that what women have been tasked with over millennia now, in terms of, as we spoke about earlier, the king keeping, the caregiving, the kind of the community fostering and cohesion. Those are going to be really, really vital, important skills in the future. So my big beef is we need a seat at the table when these conversations are happening. And we really need to be thinking about, yeah, globally what this future work looks like. And we need to be having these conversations. And when we are redesigning our workplaces and when we are rethinking policy and strategy at a government level, we need to be making sure that, yeah, the work is humane and people are still at the forefront of it. And we confuse with technology, but we need to be really careful in our design.
I completely agree. And in addition to that, men want to be active caregivers. Like, I'm not talking
Of
about
course.
parents, but like when I say care, I
Within
mean care.
society, we
Mm-hmm.
are all wired for connection.
Caring.
Like that
Mm-hmm.
is how we evolved. We were wired for people to people contact. I've had some really interesting things happen in the last just few weeks. So this is happening really quickly. I have started having people send me text messages and emails which are AI generated. And I don't just mean like
Oh,
ChatGPT copy and paste. I mean, the emails have come from, so I had somebody email me rescheduling a meeting, but it was quite a personal email about something that had gone on personally, had a really difficult few weeks. Can we postpone the meeting? Da, 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 da. I wrote back. And then the message I got back was absolutely, because there was an error in it, it was a chat bot. And I wrote back again to say, is this your AI virtual assistant? And the AI virtual assistant got back to me to say, yes, yes, ha ha. I won't say this lady's name, but XYZ is having, this is the first time she's trying this technology and she's having a couple of weeks out because she has got stuff on. So I am answering her emails. But I was like, ah. And then the other thing that's happened is I've got somebody answering posts on LinkedIn, and I'm sure just from, I know how busy this person is, I'm absolutely certain there's some chatbotty thing going on because this guy's like messaging at like gone midnight when I post something. And it's a really busy kind of corporate person who's doing this. And I'm thinking and I know he's in the tech AI world. So I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. And what's going to be really interesting is at what stage do we get to where all our communication,
this
our
bot's talking to
VA stuff is
bots.
like they're all the bots are chatting to each other and organizing the meetings. And then at what stage do we all just go, I am so out of this, like I'm just not interested. Like somebody was also telling me about this company, which was a dating company. And they were saying like, when you get to the point where your virtual assistant digital me is completely outsourced with who you are and what you are, and it starts doing all the communication. They were talking about this dating company where the virtual me's will talk to each other and see if your virtual me gets on with the other guy's virtual me. And then they will almost narrow down who the dating pool might be. And then by the time you get to meet in real life, And there might be, one or two people left, but you'd send your virtual me out to suss the other person and how they work and who they are and whatever. But it's just really interesting, isn't it? Because I do think what my visceral reaction when people send me these emails is I'm kind of insulted. Well, it's two
Mm-hmm.
things. I'm kind of like, well, you didn't have the time to get back to me. And then the second thing is I'd like a bot. I'd
Uh-huh.
like I'd like somebody to be answering my emails for me. So it's weird. So at what stage are we going to get to where somebody is answering all our emails to each other? And then maybe we all just go, well, like, sod that. That's happening out in the ether. And what I am now craving, because this is how we have
So
evolved
interesting.
over a billion, 13.5 billion years ago or whatever, we crawled out of the swamp. We have evolved in community. This is about safety. This is about who we are and how we are. We are surely, unless the robots get super flipping clever, which, again, if you listen to all the podcasts, they very well might. There's a lot of, as you say, empathy work going on there at the moment.
Yeah.
Therapists and all the rest of it, people using the chatbots as their therapist. But I think what we're craving is human connection. So if we can see this as an opportunity for connection, I think that's vital. And some of the other work and research. So my big area of research is about women, work, and well-being. So, my big thing is around work that is productive and good work. And we can talk again about what good work
Yes.
is very important to well-being. So not only is it about about connection in terms of what we need as human beings to thrive, but good work is essential. So community is essential, good work is essential. But
Yes.
then again, there's some other research I've done around, how much money you need to have well-being and time and all the rest of it as well. And we do need those things. We need money up to a certain degree, and we need time for well-being. So if we get to the point where the bots are outsourcing some of our time tasks,
Yeah.
great. But I will come back to my original point is a lot of these tasks that women do, the emotional caregiving labor ones, they're coded female. And I think you're right. They're not going to be replaced. So we either end up lumbered with additional work, or maybe that's the opportunity because care work is finally valued. I mean, it's all to be played out, isn't it? It's fascinating,
Absolutely.
Leah.
And I'm hoping just saying that to you will help shift your to all of you shift the thinking, right? Because you need people
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, wait, actually that is valuable." And how do I bring that back in? And you need brave people to step into workplaces and start to share through the message,
Shake it
right?
up.
Brave
Yeah.
leaders, brave. We need bravery. But gosh, we need bravery everywhere right now, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
we all need to be brave at this moment because we're
There's a
called
lot
upon to
of
do something
change.
serious. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of change happening, isn't there? And
Yeah.
that is, as you say, that can be a very scary place to be in amongst all the change.
One of the
So
things
yeah, it's what we make of it.
oh, sorry for interrupting. No, please.
No, no, that was it. It's the change, and it's what we make of the change, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things, just to go full circle, is when I talk to organizations about this, I say, you're going to have an adjustment period. And what you need is people who can try things like a virtual assistant chatbot, right? Like try and fail. Like some of this is going to be trial and failure. And if we're so concentrated on productivity and going, that there's not the space to try and fail. But in addition to that, you're going to need people with mental loads that are open, that aren't overcrowded to be able to try new stuff,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you
It's
need the
so
mental load.
interesting. And so, yeah, the mental
You
load.
need a lighter
Leah,
mental load.
a lighter mental load. It is absolutely fascinating talking to you. I'm so grateful for your time and your wisdom and your expertise. As I say, your misperceived podcast, which I know is all over the place, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and whatever. Like we can find you on Instagram, can't we? So I just think it's just the most fascinating listen because that myth busting needs to happen, and the positivity and wit and wisdom and everything you bring into it, I just think is fantastic. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me today and dig into these issues because I think they're so pertinent. Um, and yeah, I hope to speak to you again soon.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you for having me. Bye,
Thanks so
everyone.
much, Leah. Bye. Bye bye.